Afghanistan. The very name evokes images of towering mountains, ancient cultures, and sadly for generations, conflict. This nation, at the heart of Asia, has long been a focal point of global attention. From the Soviet invasion to the rise and fall of the Taliban to the US-led intervention, Afghanistan's story has been one of resilience, struggle, and an uncertain future. Today, as we stand in 2025, Afghanistan is once again under the rule of the Taliban, marking a new chapter in its complex narrative. The return of the Taliban in 2021 sent shockwaves around the world. For many, it signaled a return to a past marked by strict interpretations of Islamic law and a curtailing of freedoms, particularly for women and girls. The Taliban, now in power, are striving to consolidate their rule, presenting their vision for the nation's future. August 2021. The world watched in disbelief as the Taliban swept across Afghanistan, capturing city after city with astonishing speed. The Afghan government, backed by the US and its allies, crumbled. The fall of Kabul, swift and unexpected, marked the end of a 20-year presence of foreign forces in the country. The Taliban's return to power came 2 decades after they were ousted from power by the US-led invasion in 2001. Their previous rule, from 1996 to 2001, was marked by a strict interpretation of Islamic law, often brutally enforced. Women were banned from education and work, public executions were commonplace, and the country was plunged into isolation. The Taliban of 2025, however, claim to be different. They have sought to portray themselves as more moderate, pledging to respect women's rights within the framework of Islam and to govern with greater inclusivity. But skepticism remains high, both within Afghanistan and internationally, as the world waits to see if these promises will translate into tangible change. The streets of Kabul, once bustling with life and energy, now bear a different ambiance. The fear that gripped the city in the immediate aftermath of the Taliban takeover has subsided, replaced by a pervasive sense of uncertainty and apprehension. For ordinary Afghans, life has been irrevocably altered. The most immediate impact is felt in the daily struggle for survival. The Afghan economy, heavily reliant on foreign aid, has been crippled by sanctions and the freezing of assets following the Taliban takeover. Millions are unemployed, and basic necessities like food and medicine are in short supply.
The stories of ordinary Afghans paint a grim picture of the challenges they face. A shopkeeper in Kabul's old city speaks of dwindling customers and empty shelves.
A young woman, once a university student, now confined to her home, mourns the loss of her dreams and aspirations.
A father of 4 struggles to feed his family, forced to take on menial jobs to make ends meet.
Section 4. The Taliban's narrative order, Islam and a new era. From the halls of power in Kabul, the Taliban present a narrative of their own.
They claim to have brought peace and security to a nation ravaged by decades of war. We point to the absence of major fighting and the disarming of militias as evidence of our success in restoring order.
The Taliban's ideology is deeply rooted in their interpretation of Islamic law, which they believe is the only path to true justice and prosperity. They have wasted no time in implementing this vision, imposing strict social restrictions, particularly on women, and enforcing Islamic morality through the newly established Ministry for the Propagation of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice.
Our way of life is in line with Afghan traditions and values. We dismiss international criticism of our policies, particularly those related to women's rights, as cultural imperialism and interference in our internal affairs.
Section 5. A global stage Afghanistan's uncertain future in the world's eyes. Afghanistan's fate hangs in the balance. The international community, grappling with the implications of the Taliban's return, is divided on how to engage with the new regime. Some advocate for cautious engagement, arguing that isolating Afghanistan will only exacerbate the humanitarian crisis and push the country further into chaos. They call for dialogue and conditional aid to encourage the Taliban towards moderation and reform. Others remain deeply skeptical of the Taliban, citing their human rights record and their unwillingness to sever ties with terrorist groups. They advocate for maintaining pressure through sanctions and diplomatic isolation until the Taliban demonstrate a genuine commitment to human rights, inclusivity, and a negotiated political settlement. The decisions made by the Taliban, the actions of the international community, and the resilience of the Afghan people will ultimately determine the course of this nation's journey.